Hello friends, welcome to State Engineering Service examination section of Winds of Change. We will cover so many questions from the civil engineering topic here from Expert IES. You may contact us at windsoftchange2020@gmail.com, and for the study material you can download from the link given in the description box. You can subscribe to this channel to stay updated for more videos. You may like these videos if you feel useful for you and comment for any feedback. Welcome to second video in the continuation of 100 questions, that is 100 important questions of soil mechanics and foundation engineering. In the previous video we covered question number 1 to 50, and in this video we will cover question number 51 to 100. So let's begin it. The first question, that is 51st question. Terjagi's bearing capacity factor NC, NQ and N gamma are function of cohesion only, angle of internal friction only, both cohesion and angle of internal friction, or none of the above. In this question, think about it. First of all, NC, NQ, N gamma, the formula of it, if you memorize then it's good. If you don't memorize, then also you should know one thing here, that they are composed of only single entity, that is angle of internal friction. Okay, so the answer B will be the correct answer. It is dependent on angle of internal friction only. These are the constants A and Kp, these are the constants, only it will dependent upon the phi value, that is angle of internal friction, and cohesion has no role to play in the NC, NQ and N gamma. Okay, next question. Valid range of S, the degree of saturation for soil in percentage is S more than 0, S less than 0, S lying from 0 to 100, or S lying from 0 to 100 in including 0 and 100. So what is S here? S is degree of saturation, that is volume of water divided by volume of void. So what will be the answer here? Just think about it. Degree of saturation will be 100% if all the voids are being filled by water, and degree of saturation is 0% if all the voids are being filled by air, there is no water in it. So these both are the possible values. So the answer here that has to be, that is lying from 0 to 100, that is option D will be the correct answer. It is volume of water divided by volume of void. Volume of void is composed of volume of water and volume of air. So this will vary from 0 to 100. When it is 0, it will be dry soil. When it is 100, it is fully saturated soil. Next question. If the natural water content of the soil mass lies between the liquid limit and plastic limit, the soil mass is said to be in liquid state, plastic state, semi-solid state or solid state. It is very easy question. You just memorize the graph of volume change with respect to the moisture content. In that graph, there was some line, liquid limit, plastic limit and shrinkage limit, and there were regions of liquid, plastic, semi-solid and solid. So just think about it. So the answer between liquid limit and plastic limit, that is plastic state. Okay, option B will be the correct answer. Just memorize this graph. This is very important. Keep it in your mind. This is liquid limit, plastic limit and shrinkage limit. Now above liquid limit, this side it is liquid state. Between liquid limit and plastic limit, this is plastic state. And now plastic limit to shrinkage limit, it is semi-solid state, and below shrinkage limit it is solid state. Okay, there will be no volume change below shrinkage limit. Okay, memorize this. These are very important. And at this shrinkage limit, the volume is called dry volume. Okay, so memorize it. Next question. The flow net for an earthen dam with 30-meter water depth consists of 25 potential drops and 5 flow channels. The coefficient of permeability of the dam material is 0.03 mm per second. The discharge per meter length of the dam is, we have to determine small q, that is discharge per unit length. The options are 0.00018, this should be m cube per second, it is being written wrong, 0.0045 m cube per second, 0.018 m cube per second or 0.1125 m cube per second. So just think about it, how you will solve it. You should know the formula here. Formula for this discharge per unit length if you have been provided with K value, that is permeability, coefficient of permeability, number of potential drops and number of flow lines and water depth. Can you recall it? Think about it. Okay, you can pause this video and solve also. I am moving to the solution. It is Q equal to KH NF by ND. Memorize it in the seepage calculation. This formula is very important. That is discharge per meter of length. This is permeability, coefficient of permeability K into water depth into number of flow line divided by number of potential drops. Okay, so keeping this in your mind, we should solve it. Q equal to K value is 0.03 mm per second, so we should convert it into meter per second, into H, that is 30, it is the water depth, that is 30 meter. NF, number of flow line, that is given 5 flow channel, and ND, that is number of potential drop, that is 25. So this answer that will comes out to be 0.00018 m cube per second. Okay, this will be the answer. Okay, next question. The average coefficient of permeability of natural deposit. Average coefficient of permeability of natural deposit parallel to stratification is always greater than that perpendicular to stratification, or parallel to stratification is always less than that perpendicular to stratification, or is always same in both direction, or parallel to stratification may or may not be greater than that of the perpendicular to stratification. So coefficient of permeability in horizontal and vertical direction, if we have to find out the equivalent coefficient of permeability, if there are so many layers, then there are two formulas for it. One is weighted average and second one is the reciprocal mean. In both that, which one will be having the larger value, that is we have to determine. Now one is parallel to stratification, other one is that a vertical is perpendicular to stratification. What will be the answer? Just think about it. Okay, it will be KH value is more than KV value always, because arithmetic mean is more than reciprocal mean. It is always true. Okay, you can see here KH, that is for horizontal flow, it is K1H1 plus K2H2 up to KNHN upon total thickness, and this KV is H1H2, that is sigma H upon sigma H upon K, and KH is always more than KV. Memorize it, it is also very important. KH value will always be more than KV. Okay, so we will see here that it is being said in the first statement that parallel to stratification, that is coefficient of permeability parallel to stratification, is always greater than that perpendicular to stratification. Okay, this will be the correct answer. Parallel to stratification is the horizontal flow and perpendicular to stratification is the vertical flow. Memorize it. It is also important to memorize that which flow is called what. Parallel is horizontal, perpendicular is vertical. Okay. Next question. For proper field control, which of the following method is best suited for quick determination of water content of soil mass? Here they are saying about the proper field control. That means we have to determine the water content in the field. It is not a laboratory case, it is for the field. Now all these options are mainly for the field except this oven drying. Oven drying will be done in laboratory and obviously it will be taking a lot of time. Now we have to determine quickly, can we go for sand bath method or alcohol method or calcium carbide method? So in this one the best suited will be, think about it. Okay, the best method here will be calcium carbide method. That will be best suited here. Option D will be the correct answer. With respect to the quick determination of water content at field in a proper controlled manner, it will be calcium carbide method. How it is so? This is the calcium carbide apparatus and this test is done to determine the water content in the soil by calcium carbide method as per IS 2720-1973. It is a method for rapid determination of water content from gas pressure developed by reaction of calcium carbide with free water of the soil. Calcium carbide reacts with free water and it will produce a gas, and on that basis we will find out that how much pressure will be developed by the gas and that much will be the moisture content in that proportion only. Okay, so you can go through the detailed procedure of this calcium carbide method through IS code 2720. I have just briefed you about it. So this method is the best suitable method for field. Next question. Which one of the following method is more suitable for the determination of permeability of clay soil? For clay soil, which method is most suitable? Constant head method, falling head method, horizontal permeability method, or none of the above? In these four methods, if we have to find out the permeability of clay soil, in the previous video of 1 to 50, there was a question in which it is being asked that constant head method is suitable for which type of soil, and the answer was it was for coarse grained soil, that is sandy soil of coarse grain. For that, constant head method was useful. Now here they are talking about clay soil for determination of the permeability. So obviously this cannot be the answer here. It is for coarse soil, coarse grained soil. This will be the falling head method. Horizontal permeability test will not be the answer. The falling head method will be the answer here. Now falling head permeability test, this is the apparatus of falling head method in which we will check the drop of the water and we will determine the time in which it is being dropped by some height, that is h1 minus h2, and through that we will determine the permeability. There is formula for it and we will go for the formula. The falling head permeability test involves flow of water through a relatively short soil sample connected to a stand pipe. This is called stand pipe, which provides the water head and also allows measuring the volume of water passing through the sample. Okay, in this there will be difference in the head, that is difference in the level of the water, and through the time in which this difference has been developed, we will find it out, and through that we will determine the permeability of the clay soil. So for clay soil, the best suited method is to determine permeability, that is falling head method. Okay, moving on to next question. If water content of a fully saturated soil mass is 100%, then the void ratio in the sample is, this is very easy question, less than specific gravity of soil, equal to specific gravity of soil, greater than specific gravity of soil, or independent of specific gravity of soil. If you remember one formula here, that is E by W equal to G by S, then you can easily determine it. Just think about it. You can solve it also on a paper. So I am telling you the solution here. The relation is E by W equal to G by S. Now it is being said that it is fully saturated soil. Fully saturated means the S value, that is the degree of saturation, will be 1, that is 100%, and it is being also said that water content is 100%, that is its value is also 1. This W is 1 and this S is 1. So what will be the result here? It will be E equals to Z, that is void ratio is equals to specific gravity. So answer that will be here equal to specific gravity of soil, that is option B will be the correct answer. Okay, got the concept, and this formula is very important. Keep it in your mind always. This is very important formula. Next question. Dispersed type of soil structure is an arrangement comprising particles having dispersed structure. We are talking about it. Face to face or parallel orientation, edge to edge orientation, edge to face orientation, or all of the above. Can you memorize it? Dispersed type of soil structure and flocculated type of soil structure. There were two types of soil structure which are very famous. Now think about the answer here. In the dispersed type of soil structure, what will be the arrangement of the particle? Think about it. Okay, so let's see the answer. It is face to face parallel orientation. This is the dispersed soil. In this you can see this is one face, this is second face of this one. Okay, there will be arrangement of face to face. Face to face arrangement can be obtained here, and these are parallel orientation, parallel to each other. While in the flocculated there will be edge to face orientation, or different kind of arrangement can be obtained in the flocculated structure. There will be a lot of void here, while in the dispersed phase there will be very less void, so its density will be higher. Okay, so dispersed type of soil structure is an arrangement comprising particles having face to face parallel orientation. Keep it in your mind. This is very important question. Next question. Physical properties of permeant which influence permeability are. Physical properties of a permeant or a soil which will influence the permeability? Viscosity only, unit weight only, both viscosity and unit weight, or none of the above? Now think about it. We have already discussed this type of question in 1 to 50. To determine the permeability of soil, we use an equation, that is Kozni-Kármán equation. Can you memorize it? Okay, if you can't, I'm explaining you here. Kozni-Kármán equation says that the permeability is directly proportional to unit weight and inversely proportional to the viscosity. This is dynamic viscosity. Okay, this is unit weight, this is dynamic viscosity. Now it is being said that physical properties of permeant which influence the permeability are either viscosity or unit weight, or both viscosity and unit weight. So you can see here that these both are affecting the permeability of soil. So both will be the answer, that is both viscosity and unit weight. Okay, so C will be the correct answer. Next question. If the volume of the voids is equal to the volume of the solid in a soil mass, then the values of the porosity and void ratio respectively are. We have to find out the porosity and void ratio values of this one, and it is being said that volume of void, that is Vv, equal to volume of solid, Vv equal to Vs. In the case of Vv equal to Vs, what will be the answer here? Now what is the void ratio? Formula for the void ratio. Void ratio E equal to Vv upon Vs, that is volume of void upon volume of solid. So first of all, this value is 1, that is Vv upon Vs. Since Vv is equal to Vs, so this value will be 1. And now the formula for the porosity in terms of void ratio is porosity N equal to E upon 1 plus E. So it will be 1 divided by 1 plus 1, that is 1 upon 2, that is 0.5 will be the value of it. And the answer that will be having porosity as 0.5 and void ratio as 1 is this one. That is option C will be the correct answer here. Okay, since E equal to 1, these are the formulas here, and porosity N equal to Vv upon V. So if we have to find out the void ratio and porosity relation, then we will come to know that N equal to E upon 1 plus E, that is 1 by 2 equal to 0.5. So it is very easy question. So moving further, next question. Unconfined compression test is undrained test, drain test, consolidated undrained test, or consolidated drain test? This is important question. Just think about it. Unconfined compression test. In this test, there is no cell pressure and the soil is directly being placed under the load in the form of cylindrical sample. Now think about the answer here. That is, unconfined compressive test is undrained test. Now how it is so? The primary purpose of the unconfined compression test is to determine the unconfined compressive strength, which is then used to calculate the unconsolidated undrained shear strength of clay under unconfined condition. Okay, so there should be unconsolidated term that has to be added here. Unconsolidated undrained test could be the answer. Since both the options were having consolidated, so these both were not possible. Drained condition is not possible, so only the answer becomes undrained test. Okay, moving further. In a triaxial compression test, when drainage is allowed during the first stage, that is application of the cell pressure only, and not during the second stage, that is application of the deviator stress at the constant cell pressure, the test is known as consolidated drain test, consolidated undrained test, unconsolidated drain test, or unconsolidated undrained test. Now think about it. This is very easy question. Conditions are being given here. First condition is for first term and second condition is for second term. Okay, so which one will be the answer here? Think about it. First condition given here, that is drainage is allowed, and in the second condition drainage is not allowed. So second condition, drainage not allowed, it will be undrained test. So possibility are either B or D. Okay, A and C are not possible here because these both are the drain condition in the second term. That is when the application of deviator stress is there. Now in the first conditions, if the drainage is allowed, then there will be the consolidation. Okay, if you will allow the drainage, then there will be change in the volume. there will be condition of the consolidation that will occur. So the answer will become not the D1, it will be B, that is consolidated undrained test. Option B will be the correct answer here. So moving to the next question, the total discharge from two wells situated near to each other is. If two wells are near to each other, then the total discharge obtained will be sum of discharge from individual well less than the sum of discharge from individual wells or greater than the sum of discharge from individual wells or equal to larger of the two discharge from the individual wells. So let's think about it. If there are two wells, if they are far apart, then obviously it will be sum of these two discharges. That will become very easy. Okay, but since they are very near to each other, so there will be effect of one well on the other and other well on the first one, and through that interface there will be some effect that will either lead to higher or lower value. Now what will be the answer here? Will it lead to higher discharge, that is more than sum of these two, or lower than sum of these two? Now maximum value that can be obtained here is the sum of the discharges from the individual wells, which is not a condition here. This is not a possible condition because it can only be obtained when these both wells are very much far apart with each other, so that the radius of influence of one well does not coincide with radius of influence of other well. Then only this condition will be applicable. Okay, now without wasting much time, let's focus on the answer here. That is, the total discharge will be less than sum of the discharges from the individual well. Okay, and think about it. Generally, the well field designed for the water supply purpose should be spaced as far apart as possible to minimize the well interface. Well interface, this term is very important. We should minimize the well interface as much as possible because it decreases the total discharge. This well interface, which in turn will minimize the drawdowns. If wells are spaced too closely together, the amount of the well interface could be very high. As much as the well interface, there will be lesser discharge. Okay, you can see here, these are two wells which are close to each other. Then the drawdown will be lower because of this. The influence of one will be on the other one. So there will be well interface, and this will lead to the lower discharge than the sum of these two discharges. Okay, so moving to the next question, that is question number 65. The total and effective stress at a depth of 5 meters below the top level of the water in a swimming pool are respectively. We have to find out the total and effective stress at a depth of 5 meters below top level of the water in swimming pool. Usually swimming pools are not made for the depth of 5 meters, but we are taking a condition here. Now at a depth of 5 meters, value of total and effective stress will be either 0 and 0 or 0.5 and 0 or 0.5 and 0.5 kg per centimeter square or 1 and 0.5 kg per centimeter square. Now at depth of 5 meter, think about it. At depth of 5 meter, there will be some total stress because there will be presence of pore water pressure because of only the water that will be present there. That pore water pressure will be equal to the total stress, and effective stress is the difference of total stress and pore water pressure. So obviously the effective stress value will be 0 and there will be some positive value of total stress. So answer that should be correct here will be B, because there will be some total stress and there will be 0 effective stress. Now let's find it out that how it is true. Pore water pressure is total stress, since only water is there, we have already discussed it. Now pore water pressure will be the unit weight of water in kg per centimeter square into depth. Now here the unit weight of water in kg per centimeter square, that is 0.001. It is 1 gram per centimeter square, that is unit weight of water, and if we will write it in kg per centimeter square, then it will become 0.001 into what is depth in centimeter. It is 5 meter. So 5 meter is 500 centimeter. Okay, so it will be 0.5 kg per centimeter square, that is pore water pressure. Now effective stress equal to total stress minus pore water pressure, since total stress and pore water pressure are equal to each other, so this effective stress will be 0. Okay, very easy question. Let's move to the next question. Due to rising temperature, the viscosity and unit weight of the percolating fluid are reduced to 60% and 90% respectively. The viscosity and unit weight, these are reduced by this much amount. If other things remains constant, the coefficient of permeability increased by 25%, increased by 50%, increased by 33.3%, or decreased by 33.3%. So if we have to find out the coefficient of permeability here, this is also the question from Kozny-Kamenz equation only. If we have to find out the change in the coefficient of permeability, then we have to find out its relation with viscosity and unit weight. Let's write it down. The equation Kozny-Kamenz, that is the same equation. This is unit weight and this is the dynamic viscosity. Now we can see here that these both are having power 1. Unit weight is in the numerator and viscosity is in denominator. So the change which will be observed here will be K2 equal to 0.9 by 0.6 into K1. Why it is so? Because this unit weight is 0.9 times of the unit weight initially, and this viscosity is 0.6 times the viscosity that was initially, that is for K1 value. Okay, so the K2 value will be 0.9 upon 0.6, that is 1.5 times of K1. That is coefficient of permeability in the second case is 1.5 times of permeability in the first case. Just think about it, take it into the observation. I am moving further. Next question. At liquid limit, all soil possesses same shear strength of small magnitude, same shear strength of large magnitude, different shear strength of small magnitude, or different shear strength of large magnitude. Now at the liquid limit, the shear strength value for each type of soil, will it change or it will not change? First of all, we have to find out that. Now whether it will be of small magnitude or it will be of large magnitude. So there are two questions in front of us. Now first of all, think about the magnitude of it. Since at the liquid limit, the soil had just started gaining the plasticity. Before that, it was totally a liquid kind of soil. There was no plasticity in it. So the shear strength will be very much lower. It will be approximately zero value. Okay. So there are two possibilities of the answer, that is either A or either C, in which small magnitudes are being given here. Now shear strength, if we talk about the shear strength, so there will not be any change in the shear strength for different kind of soil. Okay, if the C value is same, so obviously we can see here one point that this will be same, that is the same shear strength for different type of soil of small magnitude. Okay, answer A will be the correct answer. That is, undrained shear strength of the soil as liquid limit can be considered to be around 1.7 kN per meter square for each type of soil. Okay, next question. Sensitivity of soil can be defined as the, can you recall the term sensitivity? Now think about it. There are the definitions given in the options. Percentage of the volume change of soil under saturated condition, or the ratio of compressive strength of unconfined disturbed soil to that of the soil in the remolded state, or ratio of the volume of void to the volume of solid, or none of the above. So think about it, take your time. Just recall the definition of sensitivity. It is very easy question. It cannot be volume of void to volume of solid, which is void ratio. Okay, there is two possibilities, that is removed. Percentage of volume change to the soil under saturated condition. Okay, percentage of volume change, this is not sensitivity. Sensitivity will be the ratio of compressive strength of unconfined undisturbed soil to that of soil in the remolded state. Okay, option B will be the correct answer here. Soil sensitivity is an important measure of loss of strength and structure in the soil body under the effect of static or seismic loading. Okay, and the definition here says that it is the ratio of the compressive strength of undisturbed soil to the remolded soil. Okay, so answer will be B. Next question. Valid range for N, the percentage voids is N, that is the porosity. Porosity value lies from either 0 to 100 or including 0 and 100, or N more than 0 or N less than 0. Just think about it. It is volume of void to the total volume of soil. Here, if the volume of void is equal to volume of soil sample, then there will be the value that is 100. That means there will not be any solid present in it. While if there is no void in it, that is 0, then it will be equal to 0. Okay, so in both the situation, this value lies from 0 to 100. But think about it, this value cannot be 0. Why? Because even in the case in which there is no void, which is not possible in the macro structure of the soil. If you think about it, there will always be voids present between the soil mass. Even there is higher compaction, as much higher compaction you can give, then also there will be some void remaining. You cannot fill it totally 100% by removing all the voids. Okay, so obviously there will be some volume of void, so it cannot be 0. While 100% means there will be only voids, there will not be solid. If there is no solid, then there is no soil. Obviously there is no meaning of the soil, and obviously there cannot be a 100 answer. It is not a soil, it will become only the air. Okay, so these two values are not included, and value lies from 0 to 100. Okay, next question. Rankine's theory of earth pressure assumes that back of the wall is plane and smooth, plane and rough, vertical and smooth, and vertical and rough. There are two assumptions in the soil which are very important. First of all, Rankine theory of earth pressure. Secondly, the assumption in Terzaghi theory. So these two are important. Terzaghi theory I have asked in previous video, and in this video we will talk about Rankine's theory of earth pressure, the assumption in it. So what will be the answer here? The plane of the back of the wall is assumed to be, think about it, vertical and smooth. Okay, it assumes that there is no angle, it is totally vertical at 90 degree, and there is no roughness in it. Okay, option C will be the correct answer. So let's read out the Rankine's theory of earth pressure, and you should memorize it. First of all, the soil is isotropic, homogeneous, and cohesionless. Remember, cohesionless also. For this, Rankine theory is valid. The soil is in the state of plastic equilibrium during active and passive earth pressure condition. In both these conditions, that is during active and passive earth pressure condition, in these conditions the state of the soil is in plastic equilibrium. Okay, and the rupture surface of the planar surface, which is obtained by considering the plastic equilibrium of the soil. The backfill is horizontal, the back of the wall is vertical, and back of the wall is smooth. These three are very important, because if you change this, there will be some other value that will be obtained, which were discussed by the Coulomb's theory. Now moving further, the most suitable method for drainage of the fine grained cohesive soil is well point system, vacuum method, deep well system, or electro-osmosis method. Here we are talking about drainage of fine grained cohesive soil. For drainage of fine grained cohesive soil, which will be the correct answer here? Most suitable method for it, either well point or vacuum or deep well or electro-osmosis. Just think about it. It is not so important question, but you should know it. The answer that will be electro-osmosis method. In the electro-osmosis method, these consolidation can be an effective and viable technique to drain, consolidate, and strengthen the saturated fine grained soil. As the water is drained out, a negative pore water pressure is generated, which introduces the consolidation process in the soil. In this method, the water is drained out using electro-osmosis method. In this, negative pore water pressure will be generated, and there will be consolidation that will occur. This process is used for strengthening the soil. Okay, so this is the most suitable method, that is electro-osmosis method. Next question. With the increase in the amount of compaction energy, optimum moisture content increases but maximum dry density decreases. Optimum moisture content decreases but maximum dry density increases. Both optimum moisture content and maximum dry density increases, or both optimum water content and maximum dry density decreases. Now think about this question, and very important question. If you remember the graph of dry density with respect to moisture content, there were so many graphs that can be obtained to find out the optimum moisture content. at which the dry density will be maximum. Now think about the answer here. If we increase the compaction energy, then we are sure about one thing, that dry density will increase first of all. Okay, and optimum moisture content. If we go for the dry side of soil, then obviously the moisture content will decrease. Since dry density is increasing, so there will be lesser void, so there will be lesser amount of water that will be required. So optimum water content will decrease. So answer that will be applicable here will be option B. That is, optimum water content decreases but maximum dry density increases. How it is so? Let's see the graph here. In this, we can notice here one thing, that with increase in the compactive energy, this is for the lowest energy, then we will increase energy, compaction energy is being increases, and with increase in the compaction energy, we can see this graph is shifting towards this side, towards left side. Okay, so towards left side, if the graph is shifting, then we can say that water content is decreasing and dry density is increasing with increase in the compactive efforts, compaction energy. Okay, so with increasing compaction energy, lower optimum water content and higher dry density that will be obtained. So next question, which of the following method is most accurate for the determination of the water content of the soil in laboratory? Oven drying, sand bath, calcium carbide or pycnometer method? Now here we are talking about water content determination in laboratory. Last time we were discussing about the field method, most accurate method in the field. Now in the laboratory, which method will be most suitable? Just think about it. Very easy question. In the laboratory, we go for the oven drying method. Option A will be the correct answer. We will go for the oven drying method in the laboratory. This will be the most suitable method here, most accurate method here. In the oven drying method, this technique is done to determine the water content of the soil by oven drying method as per IS 2720 part 2nd. You can read it if you want to go into the detail of this method. This is also very important. You can go for it. You can pause this video and you can watch this IS code, that is IS 2720, in which it is being mentioned, the oven drying method is being mentioned about its procedure. The water content of the soil sample is equal to the mass of the water divided by the mass of the solid. Okay, so in this oven drying is being done, first of all taking the total mass, now it is being oven dried, and then again the soil mass is taken and the difference is observed, which will be the weight of the water, and that is weight of the water, and in the second time there will be only solid, so it will be weight of water upon weight of solid that can be obtained, which will be the water content in the oven drying method. Okay, so this is oven drying method to determine the water content of the soil in laboratory, and this is the most accurate method. Next question, the maximum dry density up to which any soil can be compacted depends upon moisture content only, amount of compaction energy only, both moisture content and amount of compaction energy, or none of the above. This is very easy question. We have already discussed before a question. Now maximum dry density up to which any soil can be compacted, it will depend upon both, that is moisture content as well as the amount of compaction energy. So option C will be the correct answer. You can go to that question and watch the graph. It is very easy. Next question, the toughness index is defined as the ratio of plasticity index to the consistency index, plasticity index to the flow index, or liquidity index to the flow index, or consistency index to the liquidity index. It is very easy question. You just have to tell the formula here, nothing else. But you should know what is toughness index here. So just think about it. What is the formula here? Okay, I'm going to tell you the answer. The toughness index is the plasticity index upon flow index, IP upon IF. Okay, this gives the idea about the shear strength of the soil at plastic limit. This is important. Toughness index gives us the idea of shear strength of soil at plastic limits. This is the question which is asked many of time in the examination, that what does toughness index provides us? It will provide us the shear strength of soil at plastic limit. Okay, now when the toughness index is less than 1, then the soil is said to be friable, which means it can be easily crushed at plastic limit. So in this way it tells us about the shear strength of the soil at plastic limit. Okay, so this toughness index is the ratio of plasticity index to the flow index, that is option B will be the correct answer. Now moving further, the value of the compression index for remolded sample whose liquid limit is 50% is 0.028, 0.28, 0.36, 0.036. This is very easy question. Just think about it. Value of compression index for remolded sample whose liquid limit is 50%. Can you memorize the formula for it? For remolded sample, what was the formula for compression index in terms of liquid limit? If you don't know the formula, you cannot solve it. If you know the formula, you can directly solve it. It is very easy question. So let's discuss it. Option B will be the correct answer, that is 0.28, that will be obtained from the formula for the remolded clay, that is 0.007 liquid limit minus 10. For remolded clay and for undisturbed clay, there are two conditions for which the formulas are different. First of all, this compression index for undisturbed clay, that is 0.009 liquid limit minus 10, and for remolded clay it is 0.007 liquid limit minus 10. This is very important formulas. Memorize it. Compression index formula, this is very important. For remolded clay it is 0.007 liquid limit minus 10, liquid limit is 50, so this value will be 40, 40 into 0.007, it will be 0.28. Answer will be 0.28. Okay. Next question. For better strength and stability, the fine grained soils and coarse grained soils are compacted respectively as dry of optimum moisture content and wet of optimum moisture content, wet of optimum moisture content and dry of optimum moisture content, or wet of OMC and wet of OMC in both the cases, or dry of OMC or dry of optimum moisture content where OMC is optimum moisture content. There are two conditions for fine grained soil and coarse grained soil. For which one we will go for dry side, for which one we will go for wet side, or for both we will go for wet, or for both we will go for dry. So think about it. In the fine grained soil, we need water content, that is moisture content, which will enter into the pores and it can make it a better compaction, because it will provide the particles to slip upon each other so that it can get filled into the voids. There will be some gradation of the soil, so obviously the smaller size particle can be filled inside the larger side, in the voids of the larger side particles. It will be accelerated by the amount of the water. So there will be wet of optimum moisture content that will be applicable in case of the fine grained soil. But while in the coarse grained soil, since it is having larger size, so we will go for the dry of optimum moisture content. So the answer that will be true here will be option B, that is wet of optimum moisture content for fine grained soil and dry of optimum moisture content for coarse grained soil. Okay, memorize it. It is also very important. Next question. If the permeability of the soil is 0.8 mm per second, the type of the soil is gravel, sand, silt or clay. Now permeability value, with respect to permeability, the type of the soil, if you know the relation, you can easily determine it. If you don't know, then obviously you will not be able to find out. The permeability value, you should know the permeability value range for different type of soil for this question. It will be sand, that is for this much of permeability. Now permeability value for different type of soil. First of all, one thing that you should keep in your mind, that larger value will be for the coarser soil, that is for gravel, sand, and lower value will be for the silty soil or clay soil. Okay, and you must be very familiar with it because voids will be more in this one. So permeability will be more. Now permeability range in centimeter per second, since this is it mm per second, so it will be 0.08 centimeter per second. Now 0.08, it will lie in the range of 1 to 0.01. So answer will be coarse sand here, that is sand will be the answer. Okay, now this value for different condition, for clean gravel it is 1 to 100 centimeter per second, coarse sand it is 1 to 0.01, fine sand it is 0.01 to 0.001, for silty soil it is 0.001 to 0.0001, and for clay it is less than 0.000001. Okay, moving further, a triaxial shear test is preferred to direct shear test because, why we prefer triaxial shear test and we do not prefer direct shear test? Why it is so? First statement, it can be performed under all three drainage conditions with complete control, or precise measurement of the pore pressure and change in volume during test is not possible. It's not possible. I think it should be possible, that is why it is preferred. So this is not a correct statement. And stress distribution on the failure plane is non-uniform. Okay, so what will be the answer here? That is, triaxial test shear is preferred because there are all the three conditions of the drainage, that is UU, CU and CD. All these three conditions can be applicable here in the case of the triaxial test. So answer A will be the correct answer. The three drainage conditions, that is are UU, CU and CD, that is unconsolidated undrained test, consolidated undrained test or consolidated drain test. These three tests, all these three tests can be performed in case of triaxial shear test only. It cannot be done in the direct shear test. Okay, next question. Contact pressure beneath the rigid footing resting on the cohesive soil is, this is also very important question. The solution of it is very important. Contact pressure beneath the rigid footing resting on the cohesive soil is less at edges compared to the middle, more at edges compared to the middle, uniform throughout, or none of the above. Just think about it. Can you recall it? If you can recall it, then only you will be able to answer. There are four conditions. So the answer here, that will be option B, that is more at edges compared to the middle. These are the four conditions and you should totally keep it in your mind. This is very important. This question is important for, you can say, for IES, for state PSC examination or SSC JEE examination also. So in this, the first condition, that is flexible footing on the cohesionless soil. In the case of the flexible footing on the cohesionless soil, the stress that will be uniform throughout, contact pressure will be uniform throughout, but the displacement will be lesser at the middle and more at the edges. While in case of the flexible footing on cohesive soil, in case of the flexible footing, obviously there will be the uniform contact pressure. But in case of the cohesive soil, it will be, the displacement will be more at the center and less at the edges. While in case of the rigid footing, now in the rigid footing there will not be uniform pressure throughout, there will be pressure varying. It will be more at the center and less at the edges in case of the cohesionless soil. While in case of the cohesive soil, that is our case here, in this case there will be more pressure at the edges and less at the center. Okay, so it will be answer B, that is more at the edges as compared to the middle. And these four conditions are very important. Memorize it. I am moving further. Next question. Select the incorrect statement. Effective angle of shearing resistance increases as the size of particle increases as the soil gradation improves, is limited to maximum value of 45 degree or is rarely more than 30 degree for fine grained soil. Now we have to find out effective angle of shearing resistance. This value, that is phi value that is angle of internal friction, or we can call it angle of shearing resistance. This will be obtained from the formula. If you think about the formula of tau equal to C plus sigma tan phi, then think about it. This value will range from which limit? Think about it a little. Let's find out the answer here, that is it is limited to maximum value of 45 degree. Now how it is so? Let's discuss it. This tau f value, if we consider it, this is equal to C plus sigma tan phi. Now if we write the formula for tan phi, it will be tau minus C upon sigma. Okay, so if this value tau minus C, there can be maximum value of tau that can be available when these two will be maximum. Okay, and if these two will be maximum, then the cohesion will be in negative if it will go this side. So obviously there can be a maximum probability of the value that can be observed for tan phi is when C equals to 0 and sigma becomes equal to tau. So the maximum value that can be obtained, that will be tau f upon sigma equal to 1, that is tan phi will be 1 and tan phi will be 1, that means the phi value will be 45 degree. Okay. So the maximum value that can occur for the phi, that is angle of internal friction, that will be 45 degree. Always memorize it. Moving to the next question. Which of the following method is best suited for determination of permeability of coarse grained soil? Constant head method, falling head method, both of the above, or none of the above? We have already discussed this question in the previous video, that for coarse grained soil the constant head method is preferred. Okay, so we are not discussing it in detail. Next question. If the sand in situ is in its densest state, then the relative density of the sand is 0, 1, between 0 and 1, or greater than 1. This is very important question, very important question, because this is related to the formula of the relative density of the sand, which is not discussed in any question till now. relative density of the sand. The formula is E max minus E upon E max minus E minimum. Can you recall it? Think about it. If you can recall it, then it is very good and you can easily draw the correct answer here. But if you can't, then we can discuss here. The formula is for relative density, that is E max minus E upon E max minus E min, where it is being said that it is in densest state. If this value is in densest state, that means there will be very minimum void, that is the minimum void as minimum as possible. So this E value, that is E natural, will be E minimum. So this total relation will become E max minus E minimum upon E max minus E minimum, which will be equal to 1. Okay, so in the densest state, relative density will be 1. Now if we discuss about the loosest state, not the densest state, in the loosest state, this E value will be equal to E max. So this relative density will become 0. Okay, so this value lies from 0 to 1, and in the condition given here in the densest state, this value is 1. Okay, so next question. A soil has bulk density of 22 kilonewton per m cube and water content 10%. The dry density of the soil is, very easy question. We know the formula of it. Dry density equals to bulk density upon 1 plus water content. Very easy question. So we can directly write down the formula, that is dry density equal to bulk density upon 1 plus W. Bulk density is 22 divided by 1 plus W, that is 1.1. It will be 20 kilonewton per m cube. That is option B will be the correct answer. Very easy question. We should not discuss it further. Next question. Coefficient of earth pressure at rest is, coefficient of earth pressure at rest. Think about it. It is less than active earth pressure but greater than passive earth pressure, or greater than active earth pressure but less than passive earth pressure, or greater than both active and passive earth pressure, or less than both active and passive. Think about it. The range of this earth pressure and rest, active earth pressure and passive earth pressure. Very easy question. It is greater than active earth pressure but less than passive earth pressure. This range lies from, if we move towards this side, if the wall moves towards this side, it will be active condition, and if we move towards the wall, then it will be passive earth pressure. Now between this value, this is called the earth pressure at rest. Now you can see here active earth pressure having minimum value and earth pressure at rest is having value more than active pressure but less than passive pressure. Passive pressure will be having the highest value. Okay, so the range lies from minimum value, that is active pressure, then earth pressure at rest, then passive pressure. Always memorize it. It is very important. Okay, moving further. Next question. When the plastic limit of a soil is greater than the liquid limit, then the plasticity index is reported as negative, 0, non-plastic, or 1. Now just think about it. It is being said that plastic limit is greater than liquid limit. Is it possible? We have already seen the graph of volume change with respect to water content. That is the Atterberg limits were placed on that one only. The liquid limit and the plastic limit, if this becomes equal to each other, then there will be a condition, that is plasticity index is 0. That is the condition of the non-plastic soil. But since they are talking about plastic limit greater than liquid limit, which is not a possible condition, then we will say here that this value will be 0. That is plasticity index, which is the difference of the liquid limit and plastic limit. It will be 0. Okay, we should not think about this situation further, as this is not a possible condition, because value of the plasticity index will always be more than 0, more than or equal to 0. So this minimum value, that is 0, will be the answer. Next question. Void ratio of the soil mass can never be greater than unity, be 0. Take any value greater than 0. Take values between 0 and 1 only. Just think about the formula of the void ratio, that is volume of the void upon volume of the solid. Now volume of void, can it be greater than volume of solid? Yes, it is possible. So obviously its value can be greater than unity. First option will be incorrect. B 0, which is not possible, because there will always be the voids present in the soil. Either it will be filled by air or it will be filled by water. There is no possibility that there will be a solid of 0 voids. Okay, this is not a natural possibility. Now it can take any value greater than 0, which is obviously correct one. It will not lie from 0 to 1. So option C will be the correct answer. It will be greater than 0. It cannot be 0. It will be greater than 0, and it can be any value more than it. Okay, because it is volume of void upon volume of solid. Next question. In a plate loading test for determining the bearing capacity of the soil, the size of the square plate should be less than 300 mm, between 300 mm and 750 mm, between 750 mm and 1 meter, or greater than 1 meter. Now just think about it. It is very easy question. It is related to this test only, that is the plate loading test. Plate loading test is used for bearing capacity of the soil. We determine the bearing capacity of the soil from plate loading test, and the size of the square plate that will vary from 300 mm to 750 mm. B will be the correct answer. We should memorize it. The size of the plate, we should memorize it. The plate bearing test or plate loading test is an in situ load bearing test of soil used for determining the ultimate bearing capacity of the ground and the likely settlement under the given load. Okay, this is used to determine first of all ultimate bearing capacity, and secondly the settlement under the load. Okay, so next question. The clay mineral with the largest swelling and shrinkage characteristic is kaolinite, illite, montmorillonite, or none of the above. Very easy question. You should know for what type of soil this swelling and shrinkage characteristic is very famous. It is also called black cotton soil. So the answer is montmorillonite. Option C will be the correct answer. Montmorillonite is a very soft phyllosilicate group of minerals that forms when they precipitate from water solution as microscopic crystal known as clay. These are the structure of the montmorillonite or black cotton soil, which is having the largest swelling and shrinkage characteristic in it. Okay. Next question. Which of the following is measure of the particle size range? Effective size, uniformity coefficient, coefficient of curvature, or none of the above? Particle size range. Which determines the particle size range? Think about it. Effective size or uniformity coefficient or coefficient of curvature or none of the above. So here the particle size range is determined by option B, that is uniformity coefficient. It is the ratio of D60 upon D10. A value of this uniformity coefficient greater than 4 to 6 classifies the soil as well graded. When the Cu is less than 4, it is classified as poorly graded or uniformly graded soil. Okay, so it determines the characteristic of the particle size range. Okay, next question. Sand particles are made of rock minerals, kaolinite, illite, or montmorillonite. Think about it. It is very easy question. Sand particles are directly obtained from the rock minerals. Option A will be the correct answer. It is very easy question. So moving further, uniformity coefficient of the soil is always less than 1, always equal to 1, equal to or less than 1, or equal to or greater than 1. Think about it. Uniformity coefficient that is D60 upon D10. Now value of it has to be equal to or greater than 1. Okay, this is D60 upon D10. We have already discussed in a previous question. When Cu is less than 4, it is poorly graded soil. If it is more than 6, it is well graded soil, or between 4 and 6, it is called well graded soil. And uniformly graded soil has identical particles with Cu value approximately equal to 1. If Cu value is approximately equal to 1, then it will be called as uniformly graded soil. It will not be called as well graded soil. Well graded soil will be having Cu value from 4 to 6. Okay. Next question. Coefficient of consolidation of the soil is affected by coefficient of consolidation, that is CV. It is affected by compressibility, permeability, both compressibility and permeability, or none of the above. Just think about it. It will be dependent on either compressibility. Compressibility is MV, that is coefficient of volume compressibility. Permeability, that is K, or both of these. Think about it. This CV is dependent upon both of these one, that is MV and K, because CV is equal to K upon MV gamma W. Okay, this is the direct explanation. No need for further explanation, I think. Okay. Next question. A glass foundation is provided for heavily loaded isolated column, is treated as spread foundation, consists of two sets of perpendicularly placed steel beams, or all of the above. This is the first question on Girdlars foundation, and this is the everything that is written about the Girdlars foundation here. So the answer that will be true here will be all of the above, that is option D. Girdlars foundation looks like this. These are provided when heavily loaded isolated columns are being placed. There are layers of the perpendicularly placed beam. There is two sets of perpendicularly placed steel beams that will be provided. First it will be provided in this direction, then it will be provided 90 degree to it, then again at 90 degree to it, and this will increase in the width. So obviously this form of arrangement is called a Girdlars foundation. It is treated as spread foundation. Option D will be the correct answer here. Okay. Next question. The angle that Coulomb's failure envelope makes with the horizontal is called cohesion, angle of internal friction, angle of repose, or none of the above. Very easy question. Failure envelope. Just think about the failure envelope in the graph of the Mohr cycle that will be obtained by the Coulomb's failure envelope. Can you recall it? C and phi value is present there. It will be called as angle of internal friction. Okay, this is the failure envelope which will be obtained, and this angle, this phi angle, it is called the angle of internal friction. And where this failure envelope will cut the line of the shear stress, it will be called as C. Okay. Next question. Which one of the following clay behaves like a dense sand? Which one of the following behaves like dense sand? Very important question. Over consolidated clay with high over consolidation ratio, or over consolidated clay with low over consolidation ratio, or normally consolidated clay or under consolidated clay. Which one will be behaving like a dense sand? The answer is option A, that is over consolidated clay with high over consolidation ratio. This will be behaving as dense sand. Okay. Over consolidated clay with high over consolidation ratio. Next question. Which of the following soils has more plasticity index? Sand, silt, clay, or gravel? This is a very easy question. Plasticity index value for different type of soil we should discuss here. Maximum value will be for the clay only. For sand it is 0. For silt it is less than 7. Plasticity index value for silty clay is 7 to 17, and for clay it is more than 17. Okay. Memorize it. It is very important. Next question. Coefficient of permeability of the soil does not depend upon temperature. Increase with increased temperature, increase with decrease in temperature, or none of the above. Coefficient of permeability, will it be dependent upon temperature or not, or what will be the change with temperature? Just think about it. It is also related to the Kozinski-Kármán equation only. In that equation, have you noticed there was a term of viscosity? And what is the effect of temperature on the viscosity? Viscosity is decreased with increase in temperature, and viscosity was in inverse relation to the permeability. So what will be the answer here? It will increase with increase in temperature. Since viscosity is present here, this T is not the temperature. This viscosity is only the temperature term, related to temperature. The term related to temperature is only the viscosity, and since it is in inverse relation and viscosity is also in inverse relation to temperature, so permeability will be in the direct relation with the temperature. Okay. Next question. The ultimate consolidation settlement of a soil is directly proportional to the void ratio, directly proportional to the compression index, or inversely proportional to compression index, or none of the above. Ultimate consolidation settlement of the soil. Just think about it. Its relation with void ratio or compression index. Answer will be option B, that is it is related to compression index directly. This is the formula for ultimate consolidation settlement, that is CCH upon 1 plus E naught log of sigma naught plus delta sigma upon sigma naught dash. This is the effective stress, this is change in effective stress, and this is effective stress. Okay. Here we can see that it is inversely related to the void ratio. So option A will be not applicable. Directly proportional to the compression index, which will be the correct answer. Inversely, which will be the incorrect answer. Okay. So answer B will be the correct answer here, and this relation is very important. Please memorize it. This is very important for ultimate consolidation settlement of a soil. Next question, and the last question of this 100 questions of soil mechanics. Degree of consolidation is directly proportional to time and inversely proportional to drainage path, or directly proportional to time and inversely proportional to square of drainage path, or directly proportional to drainage path and inversely proportional to time, or directly proportional to square of drainage path and inversely proportional to time. This is very easy question. Can you memorize the formula of tau v? Tau v is related to degree of consolidation because tau v equal to pi by 4 u square. Okay, so through that formula you can obtain here that tau v related to u, and u is directly proportional to t and inversely proportional to h square. Okay, so the answer will be directly proportional to time and inversely proportional to the square of the drainage path. That is the time factor or the degree of consolidation. Okay, so option B will be the correct answer here. So we will finish here with 100th question of soil mechanics. We will come up with some other subject. I recommend you to subscribe this channel to stay updated and download the app for more videos as well as the study material. The PPT of this video also is shared with app only. And for any problem, mail me at windsofchange2020@gmail.com.